Have you ever tried a Hippie challenge and a playthrough of Pokemon?
The Hippie challenge has been around for a while, and it's not one of the more complicated Pokemon challenges that exist because there's just a few basic principles that you have to adhere to. But it's these few basic principles that make this one of the more challenging because it is very restrictive. So the first of these basic principles has to do with items. You don't buy any items from that chain Pokemart that's ruining the earth. Instead, you use the stuff that's been discarded on the ground because you never throw out any items because that's just harmful for the environment. In general, the way that you handle your finances overall in a Hippie challenge playthrough is that you don't spend your money unless the storyline calls for you to do so. The second big rule about the Hippie challenge is that we're all about love, not war. In the Hippie challenge, you have to avoid any unnecessary confrontation. So when you're running into trainers on routes, in the old games, you have to do your best to avoid the line of sight, but in the new games, you just walk right past the trainer. But when it comes to wild Pokemon, you can't make them faint. So the big hurdle you would run into in a Hippie challenge playthrough of Pokemon is that any Pokemon that you've carried in your team from the very beginning might be severely underleveled because you don't have a lot of opportunities for your Pokemon to gain EXP. And speaking of those party Pokemon, that brings me to rule number 3. There's a max of 6 Pokemon at any given time, and that includes your boxes. Pokemon are meant to be living in the wild in their habitat where they're around their friends and family, not sitting in a box. So if you have 6 Pokemon in your party and there's a Pokemon that you capture and want to swap it out, well, you have to release one of the Pokemon in your party. Oh, and if your Pokemon faints, well, there's free healthcare in this world anyways, so with your restriction on 6 Pokemon at any given time, it's entirely up to you. A Hippie challenge playthrough of a Pokemon game is definitely a lot more challenging in older generations of the franchise than it is the newer games. Newer generations of Pokemon games make it a lot easier for you to find items on the ground, and there's a lot of storyline moments where a random individual will heal up your team on your behalf. Older generations of the game, definitely not as kind to the player. There are multiple different caves that would take you 30 to 45 minutes to hike through, only for you to find your rival at the end of the tunnel and half your team is knocked out and they want to battle you. While it's not one of the most complex challenges that exists out there, it is one of my personal favorites, but let me know in the comments if you're going to try this in a playthrough of a Pokemon game.